Berlin didn't feel like we thought it would. We came in expecting cold weather, high prices, and a city that might feel, honestly, a little too intense.
But the Berlin we walked into, only one of those assumptions turned out to be true.
And it made us wonder why Berlin felt so different than what we expected.
So we want to show you the Berlin we actually found.
These are the small moments that caught us off guard, the places that made us stop and breathe, and the things that quietly changed our minds.
And also what everything costs, how easy it is to get around, and whether this is a place we could see ourselves living.
If you're planning a trip, this will help, just not in the way you might expect. I'm Judy.
And I'm Kevin. Welcome back to Finding Gina Marie, where we share our lives as full-time travelers and the connections we make along the way. Berlin is in Germany's northeast, near the border of Poland. A big, easy-to-navigate capital that surprised us with how open it feels.
We've been to 43 countries, so the fact that we're nearly 3 years into full-time travel and we haven't been to Germany yet, that's wild to us. And it's not as though we didn't want to go, but the price has always been a little prohibitive.
And we've always run out of days of Schengen. There's only 90 days, and every time we're traveling through Europe, Germany always gets squeezed off the end.
So we just had a really nice romantic dinner at an Italian restaurant.
In Berlin, so not Italy.
Yeah, but he spoke a lot of Italian, so that counts, right? And
Perfectly.
I guess I'm a little bit surprised about how I feel here. It's mid-October, on October 21st.
Right.
And I kind of thought it would be dark and...
Well, it is dark.
It is dark and it is chilly.
Yeah.
But it's actually romantic and there's fallen leaves around and we're in a good neighborhood. And overall, it feels... like a lot more comfortable than I expected it to feel.
It's an active city with real people, not just a tourist center.
Yeah, there's just some really quaint restaurants and shops, and so it inspires us to want to be outside and explore.
What do they say? There's no bad weather, there's just bad clothing. We got the right clothing for this weather.
That's true.
So, perfect. Thank you, Berlin. It's a nice night. Right away, Berlin broke one of our biggest assumptions. The food was actually affordable, especially after Dubrovnik.
Yeah, and although I expected it to be really cold in mid-October, it actually felt a bit cozy. Yes, we needed jackets for most of the time, but also we haven't been any place in autumn with falling leaves in a really long time, so that was a nice surprise.
I didn't know this going in, but I used this time in Berlin to have a Apple Strudel contest with Judy.
We tried 3 different apple strudels. We agreed on none, but we'll be sharing our results throughout this video.
And I'm right, so we'll find that out later.
I think we've discovered that where you end up staying in a place has a lot of influence on how you feel about it.
Huge impact.
Yeah. We stayed in the Prenzlauer Berg neighborhood, which was full of young families and mothers and fathers pushing strollers. And
One of the things that I just really love about Berlin is there are so many people riding bikes. And even though I think that it's cold and I don't know how eager I would be to have gloves on a pair of handlebars, at the same time, I feel like it's really great to see people getting around in such a healthy, refreshing way.
Yeah, I would have gloves on if I had handlebars
in
this cold. And I'd be happy with it. I like that the city is made for people who don't own cars. There's the underground U-Bahn and above-ground S-Bahn trains, buses, and metro trams. Between all these, we could get anywhere.
And they run pretty regularly, even late at night.
All the sidewalks are wide and flat. Great if mobility is something you think about.
And for anyone who's nervous about navigating a big city, Berlin is actually one of the easiest European capitals.
Contrary to my expectations, Berlin didn't feel chaotic or intimidating. It felt slow-paced, peaceful. There was street art. It had cafes all over the place. I don't know, I wasn't expecting the neighborhood feel and the walkability that we got out of where we stayed.
And I almost felt like we cheated because Tilda Cafe, where we had breakfast nearly every day, was literally right next door. And I wanted to do a little bit more walking to get coffee. Now, their croissants were delicious. We didn't have apple strudel there, but we'll be talking about that soon.
But we did find a scone place,
Oh, yeah.
which was very delicious and a little bit of a walk.
Yes, that's true. Little bit of England in Germany. Which I was actually surprised how international it was and how many Asian flavors there were.
Yeah, diverse in our neighborhood alone, yeah.
We had some really good Japanese ramen that was just a few steps away from us.
That's true.
Before we arrived, I invested in the Berlin Pass for 6 days. That, for us, was a mistake. And when we share our final thoughts, I'll talk about why that was a mistake.
Sometimes big cities can feel anonymous, like you're passing through someone else's life. But Berlin wasn't just museums and monuments.
So a nice surprise was that we had the chance to meet up with two of our viewers who are also big gelato members, JP and Fatima. We ended up having dinner with them at Zum Schusterjugend.
And that was the scene of our first Apple Strudel incident.
Yes, that's true. Now, the backstory is that I make a pretty famous deep dish apple pie.
Fantastic apple pie.
They didn't have a cappuccino machine, so we ended up having dessert instead. And the apple strudel that we had led to a conversation about how similar it was or wasn't to my apple pie.
Yeah, and I didn't realize how much I liked apple strudel until I had that first taste. Now, I have a German grandmother on my father's side, so I had strudel before, but it had gone out of my memory. This was like, oh, wait a minute, Germany's better. It has apple strudel.
So as far as this apple strudel goes, it was served with creme anglaise, which I thought was really well done. There were good, firm, crisp apples with sweet and tangy flavors.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
We also had a chance right before we left to meet up with an old friend that we haven't seen in more than 20 years.
Yeah, I think the last time we saw him, he was like not even in his 20s yet.
Yes, and he actually lived here for the last 5 years, so he took us a little bit around his neighborhood, which was fun.
Yeah, with his dog, who is adorable.
It turns out that Berlin actually does have a pretty strong dog culture here. I forgot about that.
Yeah, he took it to the bar. In fact, the dog wouldn't let us go past the bar without getting a treat, because apparently the bar gives the dog treats. So he stopped in the middle of the street and wouldn't go. Smart dog. Have you ever misjudged a place before you arrived? Let us know about it in the comments.
I think we especially appreciated the lightness because Berlin does have some weight to it. We know most of you have read the books and know the history, so we're not here to retell the story of the war.
But being in Berlin feels different. It tells stories and shows how people here chose to remember what happened during that time period.
And I think that's the thing we want to focus on more.
Nice and warm day, dry.
It's all right. We can put up with anything for a couple of weeks. This wasn't even 2 weeks. This is only 10 days. It wasn't enough time.
We took a World War II tour with Berlin Walks, and they did an excellent job.
Germany doesn't shy away from their history. In fact, during this tour, we stopped in a museum that had an exhibit, The Topography of Terror, which is all about the Gestapo and the SS Guard. And it was very detailed, very precise about everything that happened, the timelines, and the buildings outside that used to house the Gestapo weren't destroyed completely. Whatever was bombed and left there was open as an exhibit, and people could walk through it and read all about what happened during those years.
And then there were the Stolpersteine, the little brass plaques to commemorate people who lost their lives during the Holocaust. Now, of course, the majority of them were Jews, and these were scattered all throughout Europe, not just in Germany. The one thing that I didn't hear before was the fact that Jews were given a number and dehumanized, but these stones actually have their names and where they lived. So basically, the intention was to humanize them and give them back their identity. That was a powerful piece of the story that I hadn't heard elsewhere. I was actually a little surprised by some of the reparations that Germany has made, which include the fact that it is part of their law that it's illegal to deny that the Holocaust existed. And Holocaust education also is mandatory across Germany, and many schools take students to concentration camps or memorial sites, often more than once. So the idea is to make sure that every generation sees this history firsthand, not as abstract dates in a textbook, but as something real and human.
One thing that was fascinating to me was there is no memorial where Hitler's bunker was. It's just a parking lot. There's nothing to point it out. There's no reference to it. There's also no remains of Hitler. Those were destroyed and burned. Part of the reason for that is they didn't want any memorials. They didn't want any shrines. They didn't want anyone to start a cult of Hitler and go to these spots and use that as a place to worship this man. So the fact that they've taken these steps and said, this is not part of something that we're going to promote, is significant.
You also can't do a Heil Hitler sign or even have a swastika unless you're using it for educational purposes.
After walking through these somber places, we didn't want to rush into the next big thing, so we decided to get warm, take a break, and enjoy some food. So we ducked into a little German restaurant called Restaurant Boulevard, partly to escape the rain and partly because sometimes you need something simple and warm after a lot of heavy history.
And German food actually tastes like a warm hug.
So I'm excited to try this soup because it looked like a soup that we had in Poland because it was sour with pickle juice in it, but with meat and spoiler alert, it is really good.
I agree. I enjoyed it. Lots of flavor.
So much flavor. There's a little dollop of sour cream broth.
Yeah.
It is perfection.
Delicious.
And I don't think we can leave this meal without talking about the generous pour that you had for your German wine.
Yeah. 250 milliliter, and I drank quite a bit of it already, so that's what's left. And my meal is no disappointment either. Pork, gravy, fries, lovely onions. Yeah, really good meal, really good choice. Cold day, so this
my
warm
gosh.
meal
Yeah,
is...
that's why I got soup. It's perfect. Hits the spot.
Yeah.
And this ended up being where we had our second taste of apple strudel.
All right, apple strudel is good. Apple strudel with raisins is even better. This country is elevated. They understand the importance of flavor profiles. And the vanilla ice cream with this, also delicious. So, no complaints at all. We were sharing desserts before. I insisted we have separate ones this time.
Simply because you like the raisins in the strudel.
No, I didn't know they were going to come with raisins this time. They came with them last time, and I just hoped the strudel was really good this time. The strudel is excellent both times. So I may stay in Germany just for the desserts.
I also wasn't sure how I felt about the texture of this one. I felt like it was a little soggier and the crust wasn't as crisp as the first one.
But lots of apples and ice cream, so it tasted really good to me. Learning more about the Second World War, we knew was going to be heavy. But the Berlin Wall, that was very intense.
It wasn't the same kind of darkness. I mean, not even close. But at the same time, I think some of the heaviness I didn't expect to feel as acutely as I did. I think one of the reasons for that was because this is more recent history for us. And we've actually had the good fortune to see different pieces of the Berlin Wall throughout some of the parts of the world that we've visited. And it's always there as a symbol of hope in terms of the wall coming down and unification and positive feelings.
Unfortunately, those fragments made the wall look rather thin and benign. When we got to Berlin and we saw the vastness of the swatches of where the wall went through the city and how wide it was, and the fact that those fragments are coming from the west side only. And there's an eastern side of the wall, and there's guard towers. And then we learned that between the two walls, they painted it all white so that anybody trying to sneak between the two walls would be easily seen and shot. There was no hesitation.
And while we could see how difficult it would be to actually climb over the wall, we could see markers where people had tried to tunnel under, and also those failed attempts with their names on them as well.
And one realization that hit us hard was this isn't one little spot. This is all around the city. There is everywhere markers of this is where the wall was, this is where the wall was. You can continue on going through and you always run into the wall somewhere.
We took an East Berlin tour to just really understand the history of all of this. And one of the things that I didn't realize was that the train stations were actually called ghost stations because they ran through East and Western Berlin. And so they basically closed them all down.
They literally put concrete walls to keep people from going outside that station.
Not too far from the end of the tour was a place called Palace of Tears, and that was basically a border crossing. We didn't realize, but West Berliners could cross to the East Berlin side. Not all of them, of course,
right.
But the intention was that East Berliners could not cross to the West Berlin side. So obviously this border station was where there were a bunch of people crying and sad because they couldn't just see their loved ones.
And the interior, when you see how they kept people from one side to the other, and the passages they had to go through, and the inspections and the interrogations, it was very intimidating and very intense.
So one of the more hope-filled sights we got to see was the Brandenburg Gate. And that was something that was reconstructed during the early 2000s. And it was meant to represent unity and to also celebrate peace and be a symbol of reunification. The thing was, during the Cold War, it was part of no man's zone. The western side couldn't get to it, neither could the eastern side. So when the walls came down, it was suddenly accessible again.
Today, it's a pedestrian-only square. We barely saw it through the rain that day, but honestly, after everything we had learned, it felt right to experience it a little blurred. The Alley of Helpers felt like a Schindler's List moment. This courtyard holds Otto Weidt's workshop, a blind brush maker who protected his blind and deaf Jewish employees during the war. He forged papers, bribed guards, and hid people behind false walls. It's one of those quiet places that shows how much courage lived in the shadows of this city.
Another really powerful story we heard was about Nicholas Winton, a 29-year-old British stockbroker who ended up visiting Prague on what was supposed to be a quick trip. When he saw Jewish families desperate to save their children, he quietly began arranging trains to England. Without any government support and no official role, he ended up saving 669 children. And the thing was, he didn't even tell his wife about this. He kept it a secret for 50 years. There's a BBC video where the entire audience is full of the now grown children that he saved. I really appreciated that our guides pointed out the fact that in the midst of all of this darkness, there are good people still doing kindness in the world.
Yeah, these acts of kindness are not talked about enough, and these people are not raised up enough.
But there also were some everyday joys. We had eaten at a lot of restaurants that were very international, so we wanted to make sure that we got a few more experiences of German food while we were here.
And Apple Strudel. So Nante was a perfect place to go. It was authentic, it was German. In fact, the menu was a newspaper, which was very cool looking.
There was a little bit of kitsch to it.
Yeah.
It was meant to be designed as a 1920s German restaurant. But the food was actually outstanding, and the atmosphere was good.
Yeah, the wait staff was wonderful.
So we're here after another long, cold day out in the rain. And we've been seeing these meatballs everywhere, so I was eager to try them. That gravy is really good.
Fried potatoes look good too.
I'd like it if those had a little bit more of a sourness to them, like German potatoes. But this is a really good meal.
Looks good. Gravy, it's so savory. My goodness. Oh, the meat is perfectly seasoned. And I was actually looking forward to mashed potatoes with it.
I'm going to steal a bite of those.
You might be able to. I might not let you. This is so good, so savory. Perfect meal after a cold, rainy day in Berlin. The wine's not bad either.
Just a delicious meal. In fact, I can't imagine a better meal. I don't know why I've been avoiding German food all my life. This is great.
But of course, we did have to finish off the meal with some apple strudel.
You have to. I mean, it's important. Plus, we still may not have found the best apple strudel. But maybe we did.
I don't know. I did really like the fact that the ice cream seemed homemade, and the apple strudel I felt was pretty good.
And this one had a special ingredient, raisins.
Didn't they all have raisins?
I don't think they had as many raisins as this one. This one was special. We'll rate the top ones in our closing.
And for our last taste of Germany, we really wanted to get some currywurst. We were seeing signs for it everywhere. So we went to Knapke Imbiss, and that is 94 years old. It's just under a bridge, so it's not even a restaurant, it's just a food stand.
And it has an outdoor seating area, which we took advantage of because it was still windy and chilly that day.
First time for currywurst. Just like a hot dog with ketchup.
Well, what about the curry sprinkled on top?
A little bit of flavor.
And you're underwhelmed?
Underwhelmed.
Now, what'd you think of currywurst?
You said it. It really does just taste like hot dogs with ketchup. There was a sprinkle of curry powder on top, but I don't know. It didn't make my heart sing.
Now, there were other toppings, but this seemed to be the default one, so we kind of went with the default. It was all right. There were so many good meals in Berlin, this was not going to push them off the chart.
No, for what it's worth, like if you were looking for hot dogs with ketchup, then it certainly hit the bill.
I think this is the first city we've been to where the crosswalk signal has a cartoon character on it.
Yeah, Ampelmann. It's interesting because we travel so much. We really do pay attention to what their crosswalk signage is, and it was surprising to hear that there's like a whole cult of this guy.
Yeah, even stores. Ampelmann's everywhere.
Yeah, you can buy souvenirs with him. And the idea is that it's designed for people who are colorblind. So I think the stop is with arms out, and the go, he's
walking. Little cartoon walking, yeah. Adorable hat.
It was a nice, lighthearted piece of Berlin. And because we try to be as transparent as possible, before we talk about our final thoughts and whether we think we can live here, we'll share what everything cost us for 10 days in Berlin. Travel from Dubrovnik cost us $305 or $153 per person. Airbnb accommodations were $1,089 or $109 per day. Getting around the city cost $64. Dining and groceries were a total of $748 or $37 per person per day. And I really thought that that was a pretty reasonable price. Tours cost us a total of $257, but that includes the cost of the Berlin Pass, which saved us a small amount on the tours, but not really worth it for us. It also covered the train and trams. So our total cost was $2,463. Minus the cost of transportation to travel from Dubrovnik, we spent $2,158, which breaks down to $216 per day and $108 per person per day. Berlin wasn't the most affordable place we've ever been, but it certainly wasn't nearly as expensive as we expected it to be.
So let's talk about our final thoughts about Berlin and how 10 days here made us feel.
Well, first of all, I'll say that I enjoyed it so much more than I expected, and I was really disappointed that we only gave ourselves 10 days.
Yeah, given that the weather wasn't perfect, I still felt really positive about our whole time in Berlin.
The weather was a big drawback, especially because I had been sick before we came. So there was so much more we could have explored, but we didn't because of the fact that I didn't want to get myself sicker. So that meant that we missed out on Potsdam and several other places. And that's where the idea of the Berlin Pass didn't really serve us so well. We thought we were going to do a bunch of things, and it did give us a few discounts on the tours that we took, but we thought that we would see a lot more than we ended up being able to.
Yeah, it gave us more access in the metro than we actually used. So we probably could have saved some money there too.
Now, we weren't surprised that everybody spoke English, so that was convenient and made it a very livable place. And our friend who lives here said it wasn't that hard to get a long stay visa either. I felt like the neighborhoods were very walkable, the mobility was easy. Just overall, I thought it was a very interesting place, and I really enjoyed it a lot.
I did too, and because you had all these metro systems going all over the place, I can see exploring a lot more than we had time to do in 10 days. And it would be worth it to see other places outside of the city if we have access to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
We didn't rate our strudel. It's time to talk about the best apple strudel in Berlin that we had.
So for me, it was the first place we went. It was served with crème anglaise, and I loved the texture of the sweet and tart apples, and also the pastry was perfect.
Yeah, and mine was Nante, which had raisins in it, great ice cream, and just delicious overall. I give second runner-up to Restaurant Boulevard, which had ice cream with the strudel. Ice cream always makes strudel better. Yes, your crème anglaise was wonderful, but come on, ice cream and hot apples, come on.
Well, and for me, the second place one I would have said was Nante because it had really good whipped cream and homemade ice cream. But the third for me was the Restaurant Boulevard. And that's because, like, I'm really not a fan of Ready Whip, which I know is real whipped cream, but it just, like, the sprinkles and stuff just kind of lowered its ranking for me.
Which is why I skipped it and just ate the ice cream and apple strudel.
And the reason that the first place wasn't your favorite...
The first place? Because no ice cream. There's no ice cream.
If you have a favorite place to go for apple strudel in Berlin, we would love to hear about it.
Or any apple strudel. We'd like to hear about your apple strudel.
Thank you so much for joining us. We think you'll enjoy this video next, where we talk about how we retired early without being rich. And if you haven't already subscribed, we would love for you to do that.
And remember to
wander more,
worry less,
and bring a passport.
Until next time.
Until next time.